My boyfriend said mockingly, "Stop being so needy. I'll talk to you whenever I feel like it." I simply replied, "As you wish." Then I muted his chat, tossed my phone onto silent, and set it face down on the coffee table like I was shutting a door I didn't intend to reopen. 3 weeks later, he was pounding on my apartment door like the building was on fire, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 28 years old, and I work in IT consulting. Most of my days are spent analyzing systems, identifying weak points, tracing patterns, fixing failures before they crash everything around them. Ironically, I completely ignored the slow system failure happening inside my own relationship until it collapsed. My boyfriend Marcus Hale and I had been together for 2 years. We didn't live together, but we talked constantly. Good morning text, midday check-ins during lunch breaks, long calls before bed about nothing and everything. It felt normal, comfortable, like the quiet rhythm people settle into when a relationship stops feeling fragile and starts feeling permanent. At least that's what I thought. The shift started so subtly that at first I convinced myself it was nothing. Around month 20, Marcus began leaving my messages unanswered for longer stretches of time. At first it was a few hours, then half a day, then sometimes an entire day. Whenever I mentioned it, he brushed it off casually. "Busy day," he'd say. "Gym ran late. Work's been insane." I believed him. Marcus worked in digital marketing. Client deadlines, unpredictable schedules, late-night brainstorming sessions. It wasn't unusual for him to disappear for a few hours. But something about it felt different. Because while my texts sat unanswered, his social media stayed active. Instagram stories from brunch with friends. Gym mirror selfies. Late-night bar photos with captions like, "Living my best life." I told myself I was overthinking. We were adults, independent. Healthy relationships didn't require constant communication. Still, a quiet discomfort lingered in my chest, like a bug in a system you can't quite trace. One Thursday evening, after a brutal 10-hour workday debugging a stubborn server error for a financial client, I finally sent a simple message. Nothing dramatic, just, "Hey, haven't heard from you since yesterday morning. Everything okay?" 3 hours passed. Then my phone buzzed. Marcus replied, "Jesus Christ, do you need a GPS tracker on me now?" I stared at the screen, confused, hurt. The message felt unnecessarily harsh. I called him immediately. He answered on the fifth ring. Music blasted in the background, mixed with laughter and overlapping conversations. "What?" he said. His tone was flat, irritated, like I had interrupted something more important. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay," I said carefully. "You've been distant lately." Marcus sighed loudly. I heard him say something muffled to someone beside him before returning to the phone. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "Stop being so needy. I'll talk to you whenever I feel like it." The words hit like ice water, not just because they were mean, but because of how casually he said them. Like I was some annoying notification he could swipe away. Like 2 years together meant absolutely nothing. For a moment, I considered arguing, demanding an explanation. But something inside me stopped. Instead, I kept my voice calm. "As you wish." "Good," Marcus replied quickly. "Finally." Then he hung up. No goodbye. Just silence. I sat there on my couch staring at my phone. 2 years. 2 years of beach trips and holiday dinners with each other's families. 2 years of talking about moving in together next spring. And suddenly I was needy for wanting to know if the man I loved was okay. I opened our conversation thread. Hundreds of messages filled the screen. Inside jokes, heart emojis, plans for the future, photos from trips. I scrolled through them slowly. Then I did something I'd never done before. I muted the conversation. Notifications off. After that, I switched my phone to silent mode and placed it face down on the coffee table. If Marcus wanted space, I'd give him more space than he knew what to do with. The first few days were harder than I expected. Every morning, I'd reach for my phone out of habit while drinking coffee, my fingers automatically opening our chat window. I'd think about sending him a picture of the sunrise from my balcony, or a screenshot of a ridiculous bug in my code that he would normally laugh about. Then I'd hear his voice again in my head. "Stop being so needy." And I'd put the phone back down. A few days later, something strange happened. The silence stopped feeling painful. It started feeling peaceful. After work, I began going to the gym again, something I'd been neglecting for months. I called my brother Tyler, who lived across town, and we talked for almost 2 hours about everything from childhood memories to the terrible coffee near his office. I deep cleaned my apartment, finally tackled the overflowing closet in my bedroom, fixed the leaky bathroom faucet that had been dripping for weeks. Little things, but each one made my apartment feel lighter, quieter, like the air had changed. Meanwhile, my phone remained silent. Not a single message from Marcus. After about a week, curiosity finally got the better of me. I opened Instagram. Marcus had posted a mirror selfie. Perfect lighting. Sharp haircut. That confident half smile he always used when he knew he looked good. The caption read, "Unbothered energy." Below it was a story from a downtown bar. Cocktails on the table. Friends laughing. Marcus leaning back in his chair like the world revolved around him. He looked happy. Relaxed. Almost relieved. Like a weight had been lifted. For a second, something inside my chest tightened. Then I closed the app. If he was happier without me asking basic questions about our relationship, maybe that told me everything I needed to know. What I didn't realize at the time was that Marcus had been waiting for something. Waiting for the moment when my phone would light up with another message. Another apology. Another attempt to get his attention. He was waiting for me to chase him. But this time, I didn't. And somewhere during that second week of silence, Marcus started to panic. I just didn't know it yet. Week 2 arrived like a wave. My new project at work intensified. A complete system overhaul for a financial firm with outdated infrastructure and angry executives who didn't understand why their simple request would take weeks. I worked late most nights. 8 p.m. became normal. Sometimes 9. The work was exhausting, but it was clean. Clear cause and effect. Problems with solutions. Unlike Marcus, whose behavior had no logic unless you accepted a truth I didn't want to accept, he liked me more when I was convenient. He liked me more when I was available. He liked me more when I was chasing. During a coffee break one afternoon, my colleague Andrea Collins leaned against the counter and studied me like she was reading a report. "You seem different lately," she said, stirring her latte. I glanced up. "Different how?" "Good different," she said. "Quieter, more focused, like you're not constantly bracing." I didn't answer right away, because she was right. I wasn't bracing anymore. I wasn't checking my phone every 10 minutes with that low-grade dread. I wasn't rehearsing imaginary conversations in my head, how to ask for basic communication without sounding needy. Andrea lifted an eyebrow. "Relationship stuff?" I nodded once, not wanting details to spill out, not wanting to make it real out loud. She made a soft sound of recognition, like she'd been there before. Then she said casually, like she was commenting on the weather, "Sometimes the trash takes itself out." I snorted despite myself. Andrea shrugged. "I'm serious. You just have to be smart enough not to drag it back in." I laughed, but the words landed deeper than I expected, because there was something terrifyingly accurate about them. Marcus hadn't broken up with me. He hadn't even formally said he wanted space. He'd just treated me like I was an annoyance until I stopped showing up. And now that I wasn't showing up, he still hadn't reached out. Not once. No apology. No explanation. No, "Hey, that was harsh." Nothing. By week 3, the strangest thing happened. I stopped thinking about him. Not in a fake way. Not in a "I'm pretending I'm over it" way. In a genuine, unsettling way. He stopped being the first thought I had when something funny happened. He stopped being the person I automatically wanted to tell everything to. It was like the version of me that lived inside our relationship. The one who waited, who worried, who measured silence like it meant something, was fading out. And in her place, there was just me. I started reading again at night. The kind of science fiction novels I used to devour before Marcus became my evening entertainment. I finished one book in 3 days, then another, and it hit me, quietly, in the middle of turning a page. I hadn't felt anxious all day. No tight chest. No urge to check my phone. No wondering if I'd said something wrong. I felt normal, peaceful, which should have been a good thing. But a small, colder thought crept in behind it. If a relationship ending feels like relief, what does that say about what it really was? I didn't get to sit with that question for long. Because one evening, while I was cooking dinner, pasta, trying to perfect a carbonara recipe I'd been messing up for months, my phone buzzed on the counter. I'd turned the sound back on earlier for work calls. The screen lit up with a name, Tyler. I answered with my elbow, holding a wooden spoon in one hand. "Hey," I said. Tyler's voice came through weirdly cautious. "Soph, is Marcus okay?" The wooden spoon froze mid-stir. "What?" "He just messaged me," Tyler said. "On Instagram. Asked if you're all right." My heart didn't race. It didn't drop. It just paused. "What did he say exactly?" I asked. Tyler exhaled. "He asked if something happened to you. Said you haven't responded in weeks and he's worried. Like, worried. I stared at the bubbling sauce. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Tyler added, "I didn't even know you two were having issues. You didn't tell me you broke up." "We didn't officially break up," I said slowly, tasting the words. "I just stopped reaching out." There was a beat of silence on the line. Then Tyler let out a low, disbelieving chuckle. "And now he's freaking out." "Apparently," I said. "What do you want me to tell him?" Tyler asked. I looked at my phone on the counter, at the blank screen, at how quiet it had been for weeks. Tell him I'm fine, I said, and he can ask me himself. Tyler hesitated. Is that too harsh? No, I said, voice calm. That's perfect. I hung up, set the phone down, and stared at it for a long moment. Then I walked to the coffee table, picked up my phone, opened Marcus's muted conversation, and my screen filled with a number that made my eyebrows lift. 37 unread messages. My thumb hovered. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel heartbreak. Just a mild curiosity. Like I was about to open an email thread from a client I didn't care about anymore. I tapped into the chat, and the first message I saw was simple. Hey. Below it sat another, sent later. You there? I leaned against the kitchen counter, pasta sauce quietly bubbling behind me on the stove, and started scrolling. Over the next days, the pattern unfolded like a predictable cycle. Confusion, impatience, irritation, then anger, then something that tried to masquerade as concern. But not once did I see an apology. Not one line that said I was wrong. Not one acknowledgement that he might have crossed a line. Even his panic sounded like frustration. Like my silence was an inconvenience he needed resolved, not a consequence of his own words. The most recent message had arrived less than an hour earlier. I'm coming over, we need to talk, this has gone on long enough. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, waiting for something to surface. Anger, satisfaction, maybe a flicker of vindication. But none of that came. Just mild curiosity. Behind me, the sauce started popping loudly. I turned the heat down, stirred slowly, and let my mind process what I'd just seen. 37 messages, not one apology. I locked my phone and set it back on the counter. If Marcus wanted to talk, apparently he was already on his way. 20 minutes passed quietly. I finished the pasta, added the egg mixture carefully so it wouldn't scramble, and plated the dish. I just sat down at the small table by the window when it happened. Bang! 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 The pounding on my front door was so sudden and aggressive that the fork slipped out of my hand. Another series of knocks followed immediately. Not polite. Not patient. Desperate. The neighbor's dog down the hall started barking. I stood up slowly, walked to the sink, rinsed my hands under cool water, then dried them carefully with a towel. The knocking continued. Bang, bang, bang. Sophia! Marcus's voice echoed through the hallway. Open the door. I walked toward the door at a normal pace. Not rushing. Not dragging it out either. Just calm. When I reached it, I leaned forward and looked through the peephole. Marcus stood in the hallway outside my apartment. But not the Marcus from his Instagram stories. Not the confident guy leaning back in a bar chair with a drink in his hand. This Marcus looked wrecked. His hair was pulled back messily like he'd been running his hands through it all day. He wore gray sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, clothes I'd never seen him wear outside his apartment before. Marcus was meticulous about appearances. Even quick grocery runs usually involved styled hair and a fitted jacket. Now he looked like he'd thrown on whatever was closest to the floor. No grooming, no confidence, just panic. His eyes were red, puffy, like he hadn't slept. He knocked again, louder. Sophia! I took a slow breath, then unlocked the door and opened it. Marcus froze the moment he saw me. His eyes widened. For a full 3 seconds, he just stared, like he'd been expecting something completely different. He said finally, voice cracking. You're okay? I leaned casually against the doorframe. Yeah, I said. Why wouldn't I be? Marcus blinked rapidly. I thought something happened to you. His voice rushed out in a messy stream. You haven't answered me in weeks. I thought you were dead or in the hospital or... I'm fine, I said calmly. Just been busy. The word landed like a spark in gasoline. Marcus's expression shifted instantly. Relief first, then confusion, then anger. Busy? He repeated. You couldn't send one message to let me know you were alive? I tilted my head slightly. You said you'd talk to me whenever you felt like it, I reminded him. So I respected that. Marcus stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. That's not what I meant, he snapped. What did you mean? I asked, still calm. Because I genuinely wanted to hear the explanation. I didn't mean ignore me, he said, voice rising. I didn't mean disappear like I don't exist. I shrugged slightly. I didn't disappear. I've been right here the whole time. You just didn't notice because I wasn't chasing you anymore. The hallway went silent. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it again. His breathing grew uneven. And then something unexpected happened. His eyes filled with tears. You're punishing me, he said hoarsely. This is punishment. I shook my head slowly. I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. Marcus wiped at his face angrily. You know that's not what I meant. I held his gaze. What's not fair, I said, firmer now, is mocking someone for wanting basic communication. Marcus flinched. What's not fair is making me feel like I'm asking for too much when I just want the bare minimum. A text back. An acknowledgement that I exist. His shoulders slumped slightly. The anger drained out of him. I was stressed, he muttered. Work's been insane, and I felt suffocated. I let that sit in the air for a moment. Then I said quietly, "If you felt overwhelmed, you say that. You say, 'Hey, I need a few days to decompress.' You don't mock someone who cares about you." Marcus's breathing grew shakier. "I know," he whispered. "I know I should have." He looked at me with something close to desperation. "But I didn't think you'd go this cold. This isn't like you." For a moment, I considered that, because he was right. The old version of me would have called him the next morning, apologized for overreacting, tried to smooth everything over. But that version of me had been dissolving for weeks. "Maybe it should be like me," I said quietly. "Maybe I should have had boundaries a long time ago." Marcus stared at me, like the sentence physically hurt him. "Boundaries?" he repeated. "Yes. Instead of accepting whatever scraps of attention you felt like giving." His face tightened. "Scraps? That's what you think I was giving you?" I met his eyes. That's exactly what it felt like. Marcus didn't respond. The silence between us thickened. Then he whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "I didn't realize." I tilted my head slightly. "You didn't ask." The words landed hard. Marcus visibly flinched. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked softer, "So that's it? 2 years? And you're just done?" I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly tired. "From where I'm standing," I said slowly, "we've been over for weeks." Marcus looked like the floor had disappeared under his feet. "You just didn't notice," I finished quietly. "Because you were too busy posting about your unbothered energy." His eyes widened. "You saw that?" I nodded once. "You looked happy. You looked relieved. So I let you have that." Marcus's lips trembled. "That wasn't about you," he said quickly. I studied his face. Then I said evenly, "It was exactly about me." And for the first time since I opened the door, Marcus looked afraid, like someone who had just realized he'd been reading the wrong map the entire time. He swallowed hard. "You're serious," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded once. "I'm serious." Marcus exhaled shakily and ran a hand down his face. "I said something stupid," he said, voice rising. "People say things when they're stressed." "You didn't just say something stupid," I replied quietly. "You showed me how little respect you had for me." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" His jaw clenched. Then, like he was grabbing for something that could fix it, he said, "Look, things were complicated those couple weeks." My stomach tightened slightly. "Complicated how?" Marcus hesitated. His eyes flicked down the hallway like he was considering leaving. Then he said carefully, "My ex reached out." There it was, a puzzle piece sliding into place. "Lena?" I asked. Marcus's eyes snapped back to mine. "You remember her?" "Of course I remember her," I said. "When did she contact you?" He swallowed. "Around the time things got weird." "And you met her," I said. It wasn't a question. Marcus's silence lasted half a beat too long. Then he muttered, "Yeah." "How many times?" He exhaled. "A few." My mind flashed back to that rooftop story. The half-second glimpse of a woman beside him. The way she leaned toward Marcus like she belonged in his orbit. "So while you were too busy to answer me," I said calmly, "you had time for her." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "What was it like?" I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Oh, she just wanted to talk." "About what?" "Our relationship." "Your past relationship," I corrected. Marcus nodded, eyes not meeting mine. "She said she missed me." "And you didn't shut it down," I said. He didn't answer. He didn't have to, because the truth was sitting in the space between us. "I didn't know what I wanted," he said finally. The hallway went very still, because that sentence meant exactly what it sounded like. Marcus had been evaluating his options. Me or her. And when I stopped chasing him, the decision became much less convenient. "I see," I said quietly. "But nothing happened," he insisted quickly. "We just talked." "That's not the point," I replied. The words came out calm but sharp. "The point is that while you were deciding whether I was worth your time," I gestured lightly toward my silent apartment. "You still expected me to sit here waiting." Marcus didn't respond, because he knew that part was true. He stepped closer, voice softer now. "Look, I was confused. But seeing you tonight..." His eyes searched my face desperately. "It made everything clear." I waited. Marcus swallowed. "I want you." The words hung there, heavy. Too late. Because weeks ago, I would have believed them instantly. But the woman standing in that doorway had spent long days learning how peaceful life could be without someone constantly making her question her worth. And that kind of clarity is hard to undo. I looked at Marcus carefully. Then I asked the question that mattered most. If I had texted you the next morning, if I'd apologized, if I'd chased you like I always did, my voice stayed calm. Would you still have met Lena? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said everything. And just as that truth settled in my chest, I heard it. A soft sound down the hall. An elevator bell. Someone stepping out. I didn't look away from Marcus, but I saw his eyes flick fast. like he was suddenly aware of the hallway behind him, like there was something else he didn't want walking into this moment. And that was when I knew this wasn't just about stress. It never was. Marcus didn't answer my question. He didn't need to. The silence between us filled the hallway like thick fog, because the truth had already arrived. If I had chased him the next morning, if I had apologized for being needy, if I had smoothed everything over like I usually did, Marcus would have continued exactly the way he had been, talking to me when it suited him, meeting his ex when it suited him, keeping both possibilities open until he decided which one felt more exciting, and somehow still expecting me to be there. Waiting. Marcus shifted his weight uncomfortably. Sophia, it wasn't like that. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Then what was it like? He ran a hand through his hair again, the motion restless now. I was confused, he said. I needed time to think. You had time, I replied quietly. 3 weeks of it. Marcus swallowed. But you disappeared. No, I said calmly. I stopped chasing. Those two things felt very different to me now. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. You're acting like I betrayed you. I almost laughed. Marcus, you told me I was needy for caring about you. That's not betrayal? I was frustrated. And I was hurt. Silence. Marcus's shoulders slumped. For the first time since he arrived, the anger drained out of him and something else took its place. Regret. I didn't realize it felt that bad for you, he admitted quietly. You didn't ask, I said again. The words landed just as hard the second time. Marcus flinched slightly. He stepped closer to the doorway. Soph, please. His voice softened. We can fix this. I studied his face. The messy hair. The red eyes. The desperation that hadn't been there weeks ago. You said you wanted communication, he continued quickly. I'll communicate. You said you wanted consistency. I'll be consistent. You will, I said gently. For a while. Marcus blinked. What? You'll text every morning, I continued. You'll check in during lunch. You'll call at night. His face brightened slightly. Yes, exactly. Until you feel safe again, I finished. The hope faded from his expression. Until you're confident I'm not going anywhere. Marcus's jaw tightened. And then what? He asked. Then slowly things go back to how they were. I watched the realization creep across his face. And eventually, I said quietly, we end up right here again. Marcus shook his head immediately. No, I wouldn't do that again. Maybe not intentionally, I said. But patterns don't change just because someone promises they will. Marcus looked frustrated now. So that's it? You're not even willing to try? I considered that. Once, I would have tried endlessly. Explained my feelings 100 different ways. Given second chances. Third chances. Maybe fourth. But standing here now, I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't angry anymore. And when anger disappears, sometimes what replaces it is clarity. I tried for 2 years, I said softly. Marcus's voice cracked. So that's it? 2 years and you're just done? I leaned against the doorframe again, suddenly tired. Marcus, I said quietly. From where I'm standing, I gestured lightly between us. We've been done for weeks. His face twisted like the words physically hurt. You just didn't notice. Because you were busy deciding whether Lena deserved another chance. That's not fair, he whispered. Isn't it? Marcus rubbed his eyes. Then he said something quietly. I love you. The words hung in the air. A month ago, they would have shattered my defenses instantly. Tonight, they felt different. Not fake. Just too late. Maybe you do, I said gently. But you don't respect me. And that part mattered more. Marcus reached for my hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and shaking. Please, he whispered. Let's just talk this through. I didn't pull my hand away immediately. But I didn't hold his back either. It rested there between us. Limp. Marcus noticed. His face crumpled slightly. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I know, I replied softly. And I believe you. That seemed to confuse him. If you believe me, why won't you give us another chance? I gently slipped my hand out of his grasp, because the answer had become painfully simple. You shouldn't have to lose someone to start treating them well. The sentence landed heavily in the quiet hallway. Marcus's breathing grew uneven again. I can change, he whispered. Maybe, I said. But that change shouldn't happen at the cost of my peace. I stepped back, creating space between us. Take care of yourself, Marcus. His eyes widened. Wait, Sophia, please. I slowly began closing the door. Marcus's hand lifted like he might try to stop it. But he didn't. He just stood there, watching. The door shut softly. The lock clicked, and the silence inside my apartment returned. For a moment, I stood there with my hand on the door, listening. On the other side, I heard Marcus sniffle quietly. Then footsteps, slow, heavy, moving down the hallway. Eventually, the elevator doors opened, closed, and the sound disappeared. I walked back into my kitchen. The dinner on the table had gone cold. I rinsed the plate in the sink and turned the faucet off. Then I turned on some music and opened the window. For the first time in weeks, the quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt calm. The strange thing about ending a relationship isn't the dramatic moment. It's the morning after, the routine, the realization that the world keeps moving. The next day I woke up at my usual time. Sunlight slipped through the blinds across the bedroom wall. For a few seconds I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the usual wave of heaviness, the kind that normally follows a breakup. But it didn't come, just a quiet stillness. I checked my phone. A few work emails, a group chat message from Tyler, a reminder about a client meeting. No messages from Marcus. That part didn't surprise me. There was nothing left to say. Work was busy. The financial firm project had entered its most chaotic phase, the stage where every small error suddenly becomes a crisis. I spent most of the day in meetings and troubleshooting. By evening, my brain was buzzing with architecture diagrams and migration logs. Andrea leaned over the wall of my cubicle. "You're still alive over here?" she asked. "Barely," I said. She held up a takeout bag. Thai food, emergency rations. "You're a hero." We ate in the break room overlooking the street. After a moment, Andrea asked quietly, "So, how's the relationship situation?" "It ended," I said. She nodded slowly. "Last night?" "Yeah." "Are you okay?" I thought about it. "I think so." Andrea studied me for a moment. "Let me guess," she said. "You feel lighter." I nodded. "A little." "That's usually a good sign." After a pause, she asked, "Did he cheat?" "No. At least not exactly. He was talking to his ex." Andrea raised an eyebrow. "While you two were together?" "Apparently." She let out a low whistle. "And he thought that would end well?" "He thought I'd chase him." Andrea snorted. "Classic." "What do you mean?" "Some people test how much power they have in a relationship," she said. "How?" "They pull away. See if you follow." I thought about Marcus's rooftop story again. The half-second glimpse of a woman beside him. "Yeah," I said. "That sounds about right." Andrea shrugged. "Well, he tested the system." And the system failed. I laughed. Because when she put it in technical terms like that, the entire situation suddenly felt ridiculous. Later that evening, Tyler texted me again. "Quick update," he wrote. "Remember Marcus's ex?" My stomach tightened slightly. "Lena?" "Yeah," he replied. "Apparently she dumped him yesterday." I stared at the screen. Processing. Tyler added another message. "My friend Josh saw them arguing outside a gym last night." Marcus had shown up at my door right after Lena ended things. The timing suddenly made a lot more sense. "So I'm guessing he ran back to you?" Tyler asked. I looked around my quiet apartment, the calm space, the music playing softly in the background. Finally, I typed back, "He tried." Tyler replied immediately. "And?" I didn't let him back in. A moment later, he sent, "Good." Then another message. "About time." I smiled faintly, because Tyler had never been Marcus's biggest fan. He had always been careful about what he said, like someone waiting for me to reach a conclusion on my own. And now I had. Marcus hadn't come to my door because he suddenly understood my value. He came because his backup plan collapsed. And 3 weeks earlier, that probably would have worked. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Work remained intense, but the focus felt good. Without the constant emotional noise of my relationship, my mind had space again. Space to think. Space to solve problems. Space to breathe. 2 months later, my manager called me into his office. "How would you feel about becoming a senior consultant?" he asked. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside was a promotion letter and a salary increase that made my eyebrows rise. "You earned it." When I stepped back into the office, Andrea looked up immediately. "Well, senior consultant." She jumped out of her chair. "I knew it!" Then she laughed. "This is what happens when you stop wasting emotional energy on mediocre men." I rolled my eyes, but I was smiling. A few weeks later, I ran into Marcus at a mutual friend's birthday party. He looked different, quieter, less certain. Our eyes met briefly across the room. He walked over slowly. "Sophia," he said. "Hey." "Hi." There was a moment of awkward silence. "Can we talk?" he asked. I thought about it. Then I smiled politely. "Actually, I was just about to grab another drink." Marcus nodded slowly. "Right. Congratulations on the promotion," he said quietly. "That surprised me. Thank you." He stepped aside, and I walked past him. No dramatic conversation. No emotional closure speech. Just distance. Some stories don't need another chapter. They just end. A few months later, Marcus sent me a long message from a new number. An apology. A real one. He admitted he had taken me for granted. Admitted he had handled the Lena situation badly. Admitted losing me forced him to look at himself differently. It was probably the most honest message he'd ever written. And for the first time, I believed he meant it. But understanding someone's growth doesn't reopen a door that closed. I read the message once, then I archived it. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, just completion. That night I stood on my balcony looking out at the quiet city. For a long time, I had believed love meant constantly proving your value to someone, being patient, being understanding, giving endless chances. But now I understood something different. Love isn't supposed to feel like a negotiation. It isn't supposed to feel like you're auditioning for attention. The right person doesn't make you question whether basic respect is too much to ask for. My phone buzzed softly inside the apartment. A coworker asking about tomorrow's meeting. Nothing dramatic, just life continuing forward. I turned off the lights and went to bed. And as I closed my eyes, one final thought settled quietly in my mind. Silence isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's clarity. And sometimes it's peace.